Okay, good day, everybody. Today we're going to talk about factoring quadratic equations when a is greater than 1. Okay, so what we have here is quadratic equation. The standard form for a quadratic equation is your ax squared plus bx plus c equals y. And the a is whatever number is before the x squared. The b is whatever number is before the x. And the c is whatever number that does not have a variable. So in this case, I've got ax squared plus bx plus c equals y. So I've got 3x squared plus 8x plus 4 equals y. To break down a quadratic equation, to factor it out, we're going to set two sets of parentheses up, make it equal to y. And I'm going to take my ax squared and put it in the first parenthesis. In this case, it's 3x squared. I'm going to take my c, the one without the variable, and I'll put it at the end of the second parenthesis. Now the tricky part comes in. Okay, the rules for factoring quadratic equations are not that difficult, but they may be hard to remember. What we want to do is we want to take whatever A is and multiply it by C. So I'm going to take A, which is 3, times C, which is 4. And 4 times 3 gives me 12. I've got a t-chart off to the right, and I want to know what factors give me 12. So I know that 1 times 12 gives me 12. 2 times 6 gives me 12. And 3 times 4 give me 12. Now, the rules are simple. What two numbers will multiply to give me 12? And that's anything in this t-chart, as long as I have all the factors there. But not only will they multiply to give me 12, but they also, because C is positive, they have to add to give me B, which is 8. Now, if C was negative, I would subtract to get that whatever B was. But C is positive, so I'm going to add to get 8. And when you look at the t-chart, there's only one possible combination that will add to give me 8. 12 plus 1 is 13. That doesn't work. 6 plus 2 is 8. That does work. So I'm going to have a 2 and a 6. And I'm going to put it, you can put it in either order you want, but I'm going to put it in the order that factors out easily. And you'll see what I'm talking about a little bit later. So I put the 6 in the first one and the 2 in the second. Now, I also have to include x's for these. Okay? And that was a positive 4. How do I know whether this is going to be a positive or negative 6? Well, because I'm adding, I'm going to put whatever b is. It's a positive, so they both have to be positive. So it's a positive 6x. Now, at this point, we need to factor out of these parentheses. I'm going to look at just the 3x squared for a second, plus 6x. And I'm going to say, what do the numbers have in common? What does my 3 and 6 have in common? Well, I know 1 goes into 3 and 1 goes into 6. 3 goes into 3 and 3 goes into 6, and that's it. So 3 is a common factor of these numbers. I could divide the numbers by 3, and I'm going to get 3 parentheses 3x squared divided by 3. That's going to give me I'm going to write the 1 in there for a second. I'm going to take that out in a second. So I know, and then I know there's going to be a 6 divided by 3 is 2. So I'm going to have a plus 2. Now, let's take a look at the x's. I have an x squared and an x. So I also have an x in common with both of these that I can factor out. So I can take out a 3 and an x. Okay? X squared divided by x, that gives me x by itself. X divided by x, they cancel themselves out. So basically, I have 3x times parentheses 1x. I don't need that 1, so I'm going to get rid of it. So it's just going to be x plus 2. There's a lot of factoring here, guys, and that can get a little confusing, but it's really basic math once you get used to it. Let's look at the next set of parentheses. I've got a 2x plus 4 inside the parenthesis. Let's look at the numbers. I look at what goes in a 2 and what goes in the 4 evenly. Well, 2 goes in a 2 and 2 goes in a 4. So I know that I can pull a 2 out of that, right? 2 divided by 2 is 1, so I get my x by itself. I have no x. I only have one x. I can't take an x out because this 4 doesn't have an x. Plus 4 divided by 2 is 2. So I end up with, and this should be pretty cool, guys. I end up with 2. Oh, let's try that again. Sorry about that. I end up with 2 parentheses x plus 2. Let me clean this up for a second so it doesn't get too busy. Now, if I look at this, I'm going to ask myself, what do I have in common? My parentheses should be the same thing, exactly the same, which includes the variables, the numbers, and all the signs must be the same. And in this case, if I look, they are exactly the same. I'm just going to write it down, x plus 2, because they're the same. What's left over? 3x plus 2. I have just factored this down to this one piece right here. And this is where we're going to stop today. I'm going to clear this. I'll put another problem up. We'll work on another one. And then after that, I'll give you one to work on. Okay, so this is our next problem. We got 9x squared minus 9x minus 10 equals y. I'm going to factor this out. So I know I'm going to have two sets of parentheses, still equal to y. I'm going to take my ax squared, and remember ax squared, that's the, a is the number in front of the x squared. So that's your ax squared, 9x squared. I'm going to put it at the beginning of the first parenthesis. I'm going to take my c, which is the number without the variable, and that's a negative 10. Now, I know that 9 times 10 is 90. A times c is 90. What two numbers multiply to be 90? A times c. And they add, or well, they combine to be a 9. Well, let's do the factors first. 1 times 90, 2 times 45, 3 times 30, 4 doesn't go into 90 evenly, but 5 does. 5 goes into 90 18 times. 6 goes into 90 15 times. 7 doesn't, 8 doesn't, but 9 goes into 90 10 times. So those are my factors of 90. What two numbers multiply to be 90, but when I combine them, they make 9. Now, because c is negative, I'm going to subtract to make 90. I'm sorry, I'm going to subtract to make 9. So when I look at these t-charts, anything in the t-chart will multiply to give me 90, but there's only one that will subtract to give me 9. And that would be 15 and 6, because I know that 15 I'm subtracting, so minus 6, that gives me 9. In this case, I can factor both of these pretty easily. I'm going to put my 6 in the first one, and I'll put my 15 in the second one, just because it's going to factor a little nicer. I need to put an X with both, but I could do either one. I'll factor them down, and I'll get the same answer. Now, I want my B to be negative. So if I'm subtracting, my biggest number has to be whatever I want it to be. If it was a positive 15 plus a negative 6, I'd end up with a positive 9, but that's not what I'm looking for. I want to take a negative 15 plus 6. That's going to give me the negative 9. So I want my 15 negative, and I want my 6 positive. So if I'm subtracting, My biggest number should be the same sign as B. That's just a little trick, guys. Now, at this point, I'm going to break this apart again. I'm going to look and say, what goes into 9x squared plus 6x evenly? Well, I know that 3 goes into 6 and 3 goes into 9 evenly. But I also know that there's an x squared and an x. So I know that an x also goes into these two. So I can take my 9x squared and divide it by 3x. 9 divided by 3 is 3. X squared divided by x is going to give me x. Plus 6 divided by 3 is 2. X divided by x, they cancel. So I have 3x times parentheses 3x plus 2. Now I'm going to look at the next piece. I have negative 15x, negative 10. What goes into 15 and 10 evenly? Well, I know that 5 goes into 15 and 5 goes into 10. But there's something we have to pay attention to. When I look at the first answer that I have here, I see that I want my parentheses to be both positive. Right now, if I just take out 5, my answer is going to, the parentheses are still going to stay negative. So I'm going to take out not just a 5, but a negative 5. This way, my parentheses will be positive when I'm done. So I'm going to take out a negative 5. 15 divided by 5 is 3. Negative divided by negative will make that 3 positive. Okay? That's why I'm taking out a positive 5. I'm not doing anything with the x, so I'm just going to bring it down. I have 10 divided by 5 is 2. Negative divided by negative makes that positive, and that's all equal to y. I'm looking to see, at this point, what can I pull out of the parentheses that's common with both of the terms? I see that now I'm going to ask myself, what is the same? If I didn't take out that negative 5, they wouldn't be the same, because if I only took out a positive 5, I'd end up with a negative 3x and a negative 2. But when I take out that negative 5, that turns these both to positive. And I don't need to say that 3x is positive. I'm just going to get rid of that positive sign. Now I'm going to ask, what is the same? Well, my 3x x plus 3, they're the same. They're exactly the same. They're both, even the signs are the same. So what is left? 3x minus 5, and that's equal to y. And that's where we're stopping at this point. Okay, I'm going to just, before I give you one to do, I just want to point out, and I want you to make sure you understand that when C is negative, I want to subtract to get B. And when C was positive, I want to add to get B. Okay? So I'm going to pause. I'm going to go ahead and clear the board, and I'm going to give you a problem you can try. Okay, so here's your problem. 2x squared minus 11x plus 15 equals y. I want to know, I want you to factor this down to the sets of parentheses at the very end. Take a few minutes, go ahead and pause the recording, work on this, and when you're done, come on back and we'll take a look at it. Okay, welcome back. So I'm going to take my A times C. So my A is 2, my C is 15. So 2 times 15 is 30. C is a positive. So I'm going to put a plus there so I don't forget I add to get B. So what are the factors of 30? Well, 1 times 30, 2 times 15, 3 times 10, and 5 times 6. Those are your factors of 30. Now, we're going to add to get 11. There's only one combination that will multiply to be 30 and add to get 11. That is 6 and 5. So let's break the parenthesis this down. I'm going to put my a, the first parenthesis, 2x squared. That's my ax squared. My b is 15. That's a number without the parenthesis. Now, I know that 5 and 6 are going to work for me. I'm going to go ahead and just make it easier to factor. I'm going to put 6 in the first one and 5 in the second one because I can factor both of those numbers in those parentheses. I need to remember an x on both, and I want my b to be negative. So that means both of these answers have to be negative. That's the only way to add 6 and 5 and get a negative answer, negative 11. Now, when I look at this, I see 2x squared minus 6x. What goes into 2 and 6 evenly? Well, 2 does. What goes into x squared and x evenly? Well, x does. So I'm going to divide this by 2x. 2x squared divided by 2x. That's just going to give me x by itself. There's only one x. I don't need the 1. I've got 6 divided by 2 is 3. X divided by x, they cancel. And I have a negative divided by positive. So my 3x negative, it's going to be a negative 3. Negative x, it's going to be x negative 3. Sorry about that. I'm thinking of something else. Now, in this next set of parentheses, I've got negative 5x plus 15. What goes into 5 and 15 evenly? Well, 5 does. But let's look again at the parenthesis we just did. We want our answer x to be positive and then 3 to be negative, the answer to be negative. So I'm going to not just take out a 5. I have to get these two signs to change. I have to take out a negative 5. So I'm going to go ahead and take out, I have negative 5x divided by negative 5. Hang on, let me clear that. I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm going to take out that negative 5. Negative 5x divided by 5, negative 5. Well, that gives me a positive x. 15 divided by 5 is 3. Positive divided by negative makes that 3 negative. Now, if I look at the parentheses, they're exactly the same, including the signs. If I didn't take that negative 5 out, my signs would be different. So now, all I have to do is ask myself, what is the same? Well, I see that I have exactly the same parentheses. They're the same. So I'm just going to write it down. X minus 3. What is left? 2x minus 5. Had you put these two in the other area, in the other parentheses, and flipped them, you'd end up with the same answer. That's what's neat about this, guys. Okay, have you try another one. I'm going to pause. I'm going to clear the board and let you do another one. Okay, so this is the next problem I want you to do. 2x squared minus 15 minus 27 equals y. Go ahead and pause the recording, and when you're done, come on back and we'll work on it. Okay, so I know that I have to multiply a times c. So a is 2, c is 27. 2 times 27 is 54. And c is negative, so we're going to subtract to get whatever b is. Factors of 54, 1 times 54, 2 times 27, 3 times 18, 4 doesn't work, 5 doesn't work, 6 times 9, and I do believe that's all there is. Okay? So the rules are, what two numbers multiply to be 54, but when I add them together, they turn out to be B, 15. And when I'm saying add, that's because I'm going to add positive and negative numbers. In this case, you could say subtract is the same thing. So anything in the T-chart will multiply to be 54, but only one, I'm sorry. Yeah, that's right. Only one will subtract to give me 15. And that's 3 and 18. So let's break it apart. It's equal to y. Real quick, just make a point out. 6 plus 9 would give me 15. 18 minus 3 will give me 15. I could have got 15 two different ways. So there's two different possibilities to get B, but only one is correct. And that's because my C is negative. The only way this will work is if I subtract to get 15, not add. Pay very close attention to the signs. So my AX squared goes in the first one. That's 2x squared. My C, which is 27, it's a negative 27, goes in the second set of parentheses. And I've already figured out that 3 and 18 is what I need. I'm going to put 18 in the first one. You could put 3 in it. You'll get the same answer. I'll put X in both. 3X. Now, I'm subtracting. So I want my B to be negative. That means my biggest number must be negative. That's the only way for me to get a negative 15 when I subtract. So my 18x has to be negative. My 3x has to be positive. So now I'm just going to say what goes into 2x squared and 18x evenly. Well, I know that a 2 goes into both and an x goes into both. So I can divide it by 2x on both sides. Okay? 2x squared divided by 2x, that's going to give me x by itself. 18 divided by 2 is 9. X divided by x, well, they cancel. I have a negative divided by a positive. We'll make that negative 9. Let's do the same thing on the next set of parentheses. 3x minus 27. What goes into 3 and 27 evenly? Well, 3 does. Now, the 27 doesn't have an x, so I can't pull an x out of it, but I can pull a 3 out of it. 3 divided by 3 is 1. I have x by itself. And I've already looked at the sign for this one, and I see if I pull out the positive 3, that I'll end up with the signs correct. I've already looked at that. 27 divided by 3 is 9. Negative divided by positive makes that negative. So you have to pay close attention to the signs to get this exactly right. What's the same? Well, my parentheses are the same. X minus 9. They're exactly the same. What's left? 2x plus 3. I know the 3 is positive because they didn't tell me it was negative. They have to tell me if it's negative. And that's equal to y. Just remember, when you're factoring this out, at this point right here, you have to pay attention to the final results of the parentheses and the signs. That will tell you whether you need to pull a negative out or a positive. Let's do another one. Okay, so we've got 5x squared minus 14x plus 8. Going to pause the recording, going to factor this down. Okay, let's take a look at this one. I'm going to take a times c, 5 times 8. A is 5, c is 8. That's 40. C is positive, so I know I'm going to want to add to get the 14. Okay? What are the factors of 40? Well, 1 times 40. 2 times 20. 4 times 10. And 5 times 8. I do believe that's all there is. So if I want to add to get B, B is 14. There's only one way to get 14, adding 10 plus 4. So let's set up parentheses up equals to y. Put my ax squared in the first one, my c in the last one. And let's put my 4 and my 10 in this. I could put either in it, and it will be factorable. It will come down to the same answer. I'm going to put no. I'm going to put the 4 in the first one because we haven't done that yet. When you can't factor the first one, let's put it in there. Just So you can see it doesn't matter. I'll put my 4x in the first one and my 10x in the second one. Now, don't forget, b needs to be negative, and I'm adding. That means both of these have to be negatives to get a negative 14. Now, let's look at the first parenthesis. I'm going to 5x squared minus 4x. There's no numbers that go into 5 and 4 evenly except 1, and that doesn't change anything. We don't need that. But I can pull out an x from both of these. So I'm going to pull out an x from both of these. 5x squared divided by 5x, 5x squared divided by x is going to give me 5x by itself. 4x divided by x, that's just going to give me 4. Negative divided by positive, that 4 is positive. I'm sorry, it's negative. I got my signs backwards. It's easy to get your sign backwards, guys. Be careful. Negative 10x plus 8. Well, 2 goes into 10, and 2 goes into 8 evenly. 10 divided by 2 is 5. I'm going to pull a 2 out. But take a look. I forgot to look. Look at the signs. If I pull a positive 2 out, my signs are going to be wrong. So I'm going to pull a negative 2 out. I almost missed that. 10 divided by 2 is 5. Negative divided by negative will give me a positive 5x. 8 divided by 2 is 4. Positive divided by negative will give me a negative 4. Now my parentheses are exactly alike. Had I not pulled that negative 2 out, and had I only pulled the positive, my signs would be off. You do have to look. Now, what's the same? 5x minus 4, the parentheses are the same. What's left? X minus 2 is y. Had you done it the other way and you put the 8 in the first parenthesis and the 4 in the second, you would have got the same answer. You still would have got 5x minus 4 and x minus 2 as your answer. It still would have been the same. Okay, let's do one more, then we'll call it a day. Okay, here's your next one, and the last one for